Hey everybody, how's it going? This is Chris from Hooktheory. Thanks for sending in so many great questions. I'm going to take a crack at answering some of the ones Ryan didn't get to. So here we go. All right, the question is, what are your different roles in the company, and how do you decide who does what? Yeah, so this is a good question. So I think if there was like a spreadsheet of what a particular problem includes, we could sort of say like who probably would tackle it first. So something like if it includes anything related to like really kind of like deep music theory stuff or voicing, instruments, all like the performance stuff in HookPad, all the theory stuff in HookPad, that Ryan is the person who does that. Things like leading our machine learning and our AI efforts for like Magic Chord and things like this and future stuff, that goes to Ryan. So I would say things that Dave tends to do are often Dave does a lot of like behind the scenes gluing of things together. So like Dave was responsible. He like authored a lot of the content in the book, like the actual written words. It's a lot of Dave's voice in our books. Like with HookPad, which is our flagship software, Dave did a ton of the code that just deals with like what happens when you interact with the score, like when you change a note or move a chord. There's like so much code that goes on behind the scenes that Dave has dealt with. Dave does a lot of he's definitely kind of got what I would call the full stack capability now, or so he can build a user interface feature in HookPad or Chord Crush or something, and then also like connect it out to our API and build an endpoint there. Dave definitely does a lot. Dave also does a lot of our customer support and manages the team that does that as well. One thing I also forgot to mention about Ryan is the lead. Well, he manages our marketing lead, which is Jenna, and so Jenna's pretty much does all of our marketing and social media and a lot of creative content. I tend to be the person, I view myself a lot as like the person who empathizes with the customer the most. And so I really think a lot about the experience that people have using the products and how that ties into the design, the way they look and feel, the interfaces. It's like I've done a lot of the website design over the years and coding of it. I also have been, you should call it like the architect, if you will, of I've made a lot of the fundamental design decisions about like how our products and services, like what technology stacks go into them and how they're like organized from a code perspective. So like, our API, all of our web services, kind of like the core architecture of our products. And then, like all the user interface. Like if there's ever a question about what should something look like or what should the experience be, like I'm kind of the one who would tackle that. And those are roughly like kind of the guidelines, but we all crisscross a lot on different things. I mean, so we're all engineers, and we all do, like, we've built everything ourselves. And so, that hopefully that gives you sort of an answer. It's not like clear cut. Let's see. A second question is, at what point did you realize you had a marketable idea? And what were some doubts or struggles you had around launch? Wow. So this is interesting. Marketable idea. So this is one of these things. It's like how do you know someone will pay you for something that you've created? I guess I would say that So I was sort of, in a way, I've said this publicly before, that I almost feel like I was the first Hook Theory customer, even though I also helped create Hook Theory. Like, I was sold on the possibility of what Hook Theory could enable for the kind of hobby musician, that this idea of like getting this superpower of understanding how music really kind of works, how chords go together and don't go together, and how melody fits together with the chords. And this vision, like, I started learning about it years before Hook Theory ever even existed, just from Ryan, because he was one of my best friends. And so I still remember, like, when Dave and Ryan first started working on the very, very, very early concept of the musical notation that is now like our Hook Theory music notation, with the rectangles and the colors. And I was over at their house one night, and they were up in like Ryan's room working on it. And it was like, at that moment, I thought, I just immediately saw the connection between this information that Ryan had been teaching me for the past few years, not formally, but just like casually. We'd hang out or whatever, and I'd have my guitar and we'd talk about it. And then I saw these colors and these rectangles, and it was like really crude at that point. I mean, it was like Dave drawing some rectangles in like PowerPoint, and Dave is, of the three of us, like the worst with graphics. But I immediately was like, oh, like, if this looked like Guitar Hero, which this was like 2009 or 8 or something, I was like, and it has like Ryan's brain and teaching behind it, like, this is gonna stick. And so I always believed kind of very early on that if we could execute, that we'd really have something. So yeah, that was really, really early days. So I hope that answers that question. Yeah, were there doubts or struggles around launch? Yeah, we've done everything probably kind of like wrong in terms of how to like launch a company. I mean, we didn't have a launch plan or a marketing plan or a deadline or any PR or any of that. I mean, we just kind of like bought the domain and we started putting up what we created. And Ryan talked about the class that we did and the very beginnings of like what is now HookPad. Back then we called it, so we had this idea that it was like the DNA, the building blocks of a song. So we called it DNA. That was like our internal name for everything. And we had this thing called DNA Live, which was our internal tool for building the examples, which we now call theory tabs. But like, we put that online, and it was in Flash, and it was just kind of pretty janky. But people found it and started using it. And so it like, there was no real launch, so there weren't that many doubts. I always felt it would take years and years and years for this to be kind of like a slow growth thing. And that is kind of how it's played out. So next question. So, hey, great job with Hook Theory 1 and 2. Is there a book 3 on the horizon? There's not a book 3 on the horizon right now. We actually, over the past 2 years or so, have been experimenting with a more of like a kind of an interactive version of the first book. Dave worked on this for a while. It sort of kind of hit a dead end, but some of the technology we built for that ended up getting repurposed into Chord Crush. So this in Chord Crush, our ear training app, this idea of like being able to drag a chord into a progression that's like missing chords, and you can kind of fill it in. That interface got created for this other thing, and then like we put it in Chord Crush. So yeah, I mean, maybe there's a book 3, but yeah, I don't know. I think it would be different, like as far as like theory concepts. I think we've kind of really done what we wanted to do all the way through book 2, because we do some pretty advanced stuff there. So any other like book kind of thing would probably be more just like a richer kind of interactive experience of you learning and like creating as you go. Will there be an app for Chord Crush? Yes, there will be an app for Chord Crush. It's, by the way, question number 4. So yeah, Chord Crush was always built with the intention of being an app. But all of our products are built with like a web technology first, and then we package them as apps later. So yeah, that's going to happen. It's like really close on our roadmap. So we had to get some things working, like in-app purchasing and other stuff that we've rolled out through other products. Like our books now are gonna have some of those capabilities. And yeah, so that's on like the 6-month kind of horizon. Next question is, what is the process of going through the feature suggestions on the forum, and how do you evaluate what to implement? There's like more here, but I'll kind of do that first. So in a perfect world, we would, essentially take every suggestion and kind of put it into a document, and then decide which ones we think are the most important to do, and then execute those. And there was a while where we were kind of doing that. These days, we've sort of reached this size now where I think between our time executing on the things we are excited about working on, which tends to be like the more visionary, like new product things, or adding big core capabilities to existing products that we always had in mind, tends to be the things that we're doing that, and like fixing some bad bug or something with HookPad. We really do hear all the features, and a lot of them do end up making it into products, but we know that we're not the best, and we're pretty bad, I would say, about like having a public list of here are the things that we think, the suggestions that we think are good that we have on the roadmap versus the ones that we don't. So maybe that's a good feedback point, that's something we should really try to work on. The additional comments here, where it seems like there are a lot of small enhancements with huge value that don't even have comments from developers or administrators. Yeah, so that's true. I admit that's probably the case. Whoever wrote this question, if there are certain things that you feel we've missed, please be vocal and try to let us know. Next question is about Hooktheory Classroom. So this is our education product for teachers. Typically, it's middle school and high school teachers, and some colleges are using. This is like a layer that allows them to get all of our Hooktheory products into a classroom environment. So this person's hoping to use Hooktheory Classroom next year, and has questions. I'd like to assign projects for my students to begin with a prompt that I post on Google Classroom with a link to a website. Can this be done? That's reasonable. Yeah, we can. Interesting. So it sounds like this wants to be done. Yeah, I don't quite know if I understand the question correctly, but yeah. Whoever asked this, reach out to support at Hooktheory, and we can try to have a longer question about this. I don't know if you're trying to get a link, like a permalink to an assignment in Hooktheory Classroom from Google Class, like from Google, or exactly what you're trying to do. The next question is there a forum specifically for teachers on music theory? No, not that we know of. Next question is, if you could give one songwriting tip, what would it be? Yeah, this is good. My songwriting tip is to try not to, this is going to sound bad, but just like try to shy away from like just 4 chords that are all 4 beats long, which is the classic sort of, pattern, right? It's like, that's pop music today. So something as simple as just changing chords like more frequently, which is like, if you listen to like most Beatles songs, or just you pick a different decade. But I'm often reminded of this when I listen to the Beatles. Like, they're changing chords quite often. like two beats is the typical length of a chord, or even less. I would imagine. So yeah, I think it's like it's fun to do like fast melodies with like slow changing chords, or do chords that change more quickly and more like slower, kind of roller coaster kind of melodies that like each note you can kind of like make last a little longer. Yeah, and I think also starting verses or choruses like not on the home bass chord. I often really love to do that. 4 is a good one. Yeah, 6 is a good one. Sometimes you can even start like if you think of you're in major, right? But you can even try like start with the 5 chord as the first chord, right? And Ryan's gonna be like, no, don't do that. But yeah, you'll be like, okay, I've played the 5, that's where I'm starting, and now I've got access to the other ones. And you just find that like what you'll end up doing is kind of being in what's like technically called a different mode. But who cares that that's like what you're technically doing? Like it just gives you this ability to kind of explore sonically a little differently than you might. So you can kind of start in a different spot. So those are the questions that landed on my plate. I hope my answers were useful. And this is a pretty easy format to just like read these and do it one cut. So keep the questions coming. Thanks a lot. Talk to you later.